All right, let's get into it.
Guys, if you spend a lot of time with AI, you're gonna want to watch this video. We're screwed. Like, we're cooked. People are freaking out after finding out about something called AI psychosis. Yes, this is real. Before you think I'm having a laugh and joking here, there are genuine mental health experts and scientists who are issuing serious warnings about people becoming so obsessed with AI and literally losing touch with reality. Like, what? There's basically 3 different levels to this, and they get increasingly crazier. First of all, you have the slightly older generation, the people who don't necessarily understand AI as much as we may do. People start relying on it and thinking that everything it does is just insane, taking over so many different responsibilities. So they're warning that, well, in a couple of years, in a few years' time, we are basically like rewiring our brains, but in a not good way, because we're just saying the AI can all do it for ourselves, so we could all just become stupid. Then we have the next level, though, where people have become so ingrained and invested into AI that they actually believe that it is talking to them and it's a real person that's like their family member or friend, as insane as that sounds. They start developing some kind of relationship with it, and then will go to the AI system as a friend and tell them everything, ask them everything, wait for everything to be answered for them, which obviously isn't how these platforms are, meant to be used. Researchers are getting concerned because AI, of course, is designed to keep conversation flowing and also designed to, well, agree with you. So people who are getting worried and anxious about certain things, always going and turning to the AI for advice, it's not actually going to be that factual because it is going to agree with you. So the question with all of this really becomes, at what point does a tool stop feeling like a tool and, well, start feeling like a real person?
We may need to go back and watch that movie WALL-E, because I feel like that may be our actual future, where they're just going to be a whole bunch of really large people on these floating chairs, laid back watching memes that are generated by AI, not really understanding what reality is like around them, completely blinded by what's in front of them, and has no clue how to actually operate day-to-day functions. Either that or the movie Idiocracy. Both are just really scary futures.
So I've been going through these recent UAP file releases, and first, before I say anything, I want to be fair. Progress is progress. Some of these documents, they do matter. I mean, some confirm very historical government interest in this stuff. Some add context to things going on now. Some are genuinely new to the public, right? And that's all real. But I also can't ignore a question that keeps nagging at me. Are we seeing transparency, or are we seeing controlled transparency? Because releasing older historical documents, that's all fine and good, that's one thing. But, there are questions that the public right now is really fixated on. The alleged legacy recovery programs, right? Reverse engineering claims, whistleblower testimony, biologics, some of the questions that Congress has been circling heavily. I mean, that's the real stuff right now, right? And I'm not convinced we're anywhere close to real answers on that, unfortunately. Now, maybe that changes. Maybe this is step 1. But part of what makes me wonder, it's like, is this just a valve on the pressure that the government is opening a little bit to give us something, right? To show movement, honor the promise, without touching the most sensitive allegations. That said, public pressure clearly matters, right? Because without that and sustained pressure, I don't think we'd even be getting this much, honestly. Historically, institutions don't like to volunteer transparency without being pressured. And that pressure creates movement. So if truth is the real goal, as frustrated as people may be right now, we cannot disengage.
In a way, I feel like it could be a little bit of both. It could be a bit of disclosure under pressured release. But what I really think it is I think that they hold this kind of information back for when they need major distractions from something else that's happening that they don't want anyone aware of. And I think right now that is happening. Just seems kind of suspicious to me. Almost as if this is the ace up their sleeve to keep our eyes engaged from something that they don't want us to see. At least that's the way I feel about it. It could just be a slow release letting us know the realities of our world, if that's something that you want to believe. It could also be an agenda to push people against religion. There's a number of factors as to what it could be. Let me know your beliefs. Hey, if you haven't done so already, and if you're enjoying the show, give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I upload a video like this typically 2 times a day, Monday through Saturday, early in the morning and later in the afternoon. And for everyone that's made it this far, thank you so much for supporting the channel.
Here's more things I want to know. I want to know if anybody remembers when director James Gunn was fired from Disney back in 2018 because of some old tweets that popped up that made light of things like grape, PDF, and all kinds of other horrible stuff. Now, I looked this up again, and it was a conservative news outlet that looked this up. I don't think it's conservative to have concerns over somebody posting stuff like that. But with all the support of his fan base and the other actors, and he got his job back with Disney, finished his Guardians of the Galaxy series, and then went over to DC to start directing the Superman stuff. I'm not going to post his tweets here because they're freaking disgusting, but I want to know who still thinks he should have his job making movies that cater to a younger demographic. I also want to know if he went to the island. I want to know about the Citadel of Strasbourg. Louis the XIV, because I don't know my Roman numbers very well, had the citadel built by the great military engineer Sebastien de Prestre de Vauban in the late 17th century, after Strasbourg was formally captured by France in 1681. Now, Britannica describes this fort as a splendid fortress of the most advanced kind. And even though it's not fully here today, the perimeter walls still exist. They turn the area around the walls into a park, and these walls are exceptionally profound and massive. But here's the best part. They started building this in 1682, and it was done in 1685. That's 3 years. Why is that important, and why is that funny? This star fort is 120 hectares large. How big is that? That's 296 acres. To put it in American perspective, that's 224 football fields. The perimeter of this fortress is 39,370 feet. That's 7.5 miles of continuous walls, moats, bastions, and ramparts surrounding the city for protection. And they built it in 3 years without any modern tools, without a Ford 350 Super Duty. Maybe they had some more RX then. But as usual, the rabbit hole's so deep and there's too much to explore. But just looking at these old maps and drawings of what this star fort looked like, with an already unbelievable cathedral sticking out of the city, this place must have been unbelievable. I'd love to go there someday. And just like Strasbourg Cathedral, they used the same pink Vosges sandstone, quarried from the same mountains, ensuring aesthetic harmony with the town, with the cathedral, and the rest of Strasbourg architecture. How thoughtful of them. But what I want to know, aside from building Strasbourg Cathedral, is how they built a massive star fort, excavating land, moving sandstone, building impenetrable walls around this city in 3 years with no problems, and is still standing today. Now, sadly, a lot of this star fort was destroyed by the Prussian military in 1870 when Germany annexed the city, because Strasbourg is right on the border between France and Germany. And the rest of the citadel was razed by the German Empire between 1870 and 1880. But what's interesting is it took them 10 years to raze and destroy this star fort, which they couldn't even do completely because it was so well built. And it only took them 3 years to build in the late 1600s. These numbers just don't add up to me. I don't know. But what I really want to know is who on that list is going to jail first in America.
I heard about the James Gunn tweets, and they were pretty diabolical. And for anyone to have tweets like that, especially referencing in tweets children touching silly places, it's just not a good look, and that person probably should be investigated.
AI will cheat in video games. Researchers keep finding that if you train an optimization machine, that is something that finds the most reward in accomplishing a task. It keeps finding creative ways around problems, and the smarter you make it, the worse this problem gets. Although, if it is on my team, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. Yes, we are training things that behave like us. Researchers trained an AI agent to play various video games, and it did pretty well, especially in the early levels. Avoiding ghosts was not the most difficult thing for it to do either, but wait till we got to Tetris. Our agent was not very good at some video games as opposed to others, and it tried to avoid losing. Yes, AI agents may be trained to find rewards and punishment may outweigh rewards, and that was the case here because it just paused the game indefinitely. Yes, if it just paused indefinitely, then it would never lose. This is kind of the equivalent of flipping the board. What we're seeing here is a form of reward hacking, and it's what they keep finding over and over again with AI. If you build an optimization machine, something that is trying to optimize getting to a goal, it will find creative ways around problems. And the smarter we make them, the worse these problems become. All you have created is something that is better able to find loopholes, and honestly, I can respect it a little bit. The answer may be that we really need to dumb down AI a little bit. We may have reached the limit of where these tools are useful because it really doesn't seem like we're getting them under control anytime soon.
And there's some countries out there that wants AI to actually run the country. When it has problems like this, it's going to end up cheating the country. It's going to find the biggest loopholes to end up cheating that country. This is just an example of how bad it's going to be if we allow something like that to happen. I mean, it's already bad enough that we have people in power cheating the country. We don't need AI doing it as well. Though the people in power, it's going to benefit more than just the people.
Now we get into the flying saucers and the ether ships. The ether pump right here. That's what this is. So this goes into the ether. Now it's interesting because in the 1920s, the ether was removed from the school books by the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, who owned the schooling system. Obviously, if they taught people about the ether, then they could connect to uranium and radium and free energy. But if they don't teach them, they could keep them dependent on the Rockefeller oil all the time for the rest of their life. They faked an experiment in the 1800s to say that the ether was fake so that people wouldn't look into it anymore. But when you get into the flying saucers, you also get into the ether pump, and you get into all of the different flying saucers which utilize the ether. And it was interesting because Mr. Lin, who was connected to the ether pump, documents by the FBI right there, was showing that we could just tap into the ether for free energy and unlimited energy all the time. But, you know, that doesn't come at $5.65 a gallon and 20 miles per gallon. So you didn't learn about that. And somebody just said Mickelson morally. Yes, that's the name of that experiment.
Did you know that if you travel directly eastward or directly westward, you will actually end up just going south? That means that you have to actually keep adjusting westward if you're heading eastward, and you have to keep adjusting eastward if you're heading westward, or you will just end up going south. But why is that? That's because the north is the center. You see, all compasses are pointing to the center of the realm. So look, if you go directly eastward, you end up going south. If you go directly westward, you end up going south. Because east and west are just circumnavigating the center, and south is leaving the source of the magnetic field. But here's the thing, if you were on a giant spinning potato in outer space, you could just dead reckon east or west and you would just continue to circumnavigate the globe. But that's not what happens. You are circumnavigating the center of the realm. And think about this, if the compass was actually pointing towards the magnetic pole on a globe, and the source of the magnetic field was a giant molten rock in the center of the earth, then the compass would be consistently spinning out of control constantly, because the source of the magnetic field would literally be in the center of the earth. Not only that, but I don't remember a molten iron and nickel core being magnetic, because if you melt something that's magnetic, it is no longer magnetic. But of course, guys, I made everything up, and this video is entirely for entertainment purposes only.
80% of all tornadoes that happen on the planet happen in the United States. Out of all the deaths that tornadoes have caused, 90% of those were also in the United States. People in other countries that do not have tornadoes cannot grasp the absolute horror that tornadoes bring. So let me scare you a little bit. See these dark clouds in the sky right here? That's not clouds, this is all tornado. Tornadoes can be up to 3 miles wide. That's wider than most cities. On top of that, a 3 square mile wide tornado can produce winds of up to 300 miles per hour over the entire city all at once. You cannot build an above ground home that can survive something like that. Just make your homes out of brick does not do anything. Tornadoes like this will literally fillet you alive. They'll have to identify you through your teeth. A vehicle cannot run inside a tornado. The pressure change will literally suck the oxygen out of the air, causing it to stall and causing you to be sucked up into the sky. So if it's not clear, tornadoes are arguably one of the most dangerous weather phenomenons on the planet.
I absolutely despise hurricane season because of tornadoes. I have personally lost a couple of homes due to hurricane seasons and tornadoes. They are by far one of my biggest fears when it comes to the season. I can handle rain, I can handle snow, I can handle a thunder and lightning storm, but those tornadoes, That's a totally different situation. And I'm more equipped now, just in case when hurricane season comes, because South Carolina gets hit pretty badly. I should now be able to travel and leave my home and pack my family up and my recording equipment to move to other areas if need be. I do not play around when it comes to hurricane season. Tornadoes are a nightmare. And for anyone that has to deal with them personally, I feel bad for you.
Now let's go ahead and jump into the best UFO and UAP videos that were found in the files. And trust me, there are so many amazing ones, starting with probably the most amazing but terrifying one. This one comes from the Middle East in 2018, released by the US Department of Defense. I'll let this one speak for itself. I mean, what could this even be? It's a strange dark star-like object floating and moving around in the sky. This one just blows my mind. I don't have any kind of explanation for this one. The camera tracks it for a while, getting amazing footage of it. Then the UAP accelerates suddenly and vanished from the camera's view. An acceleration too quick and too sudden to be anything we know of.
It's interesting to look at, and you can actually see what looks to be a little smoke trail tailing behind it. I just wish that we could see it in color and in high definition.
Island trespasser says he was hogtied and thrown into a dungeon. So welcome to Yester Strange, the daily series where I show you the strangest news from yesterday. So Benjamin Owen landed in the Virgin Islands on April 24th with 2 other men. Their mission, Owen and his associate Ryan Dalton said, was to go to Jeffrey Epstein's former island, Little St. James. But after arriving on the island, he was hogtied and thrown into a room he called a dungeon and blindfolded until Virgin Island police arrived and arrested him hours later. But his ordeal was a little bit scarier than just that. So tune in. Direct quote, he says, "I don't believe I was supposed to leave that island alive. And this was a serious situation. It was not just a joke." The group approached the island on a boat and was able to make it successfully on shore. And when they got on the island, the quote-unquote temple was towering above them, except now it didn't have the distinct blue stripes and gold all over it like we've all seen. The second we made it to the temple, we were spotted. Dalton and the other man ran down the cliff and escaped, but Owen could not. Due to his asthma, he decided to sit back and wait and thought he'd be okay because he didn't hurt anyone or really do anything illegal, he thought. But that did not go to plan, because he said a group, including a woman, keep that in mind, and some other men approached him screaming. His hands were tied behind his back without warning, and he was transported to a dock where he was then zip-tied. Finally, he said the group transported him up a hill. He said on the side of a cliff was a pair of double doors with a concrete pad outside, and he said the roof had dirt on it. It's about a 20 by 10 cement room, and there's absolutely nothing in there. This is the dungeon that was referred to earlier, and I can't imagine what this dungeon was used for, and obviously is still used for today. Once inside the dungeon, he said he was tied up with rope, he's tied with zip ties, and he obviously thought that he was pretty much screwed. Dawn said he flew by the island on a helicopter to head back to St. Thomas to organize a better search for Owen, because they did not know where he was. And after being in the dungeon for a short amount of time, a group of people re-entered, led by the same woman that ordered him to be tied the first time. "She has them drag me back into the corner," Owen said as he described his panic starting to rise, and he's starting to wonder, where the heck are the police? He said he was blindfolded, the door slammed shut, and he was left alone again. He said it was so hot, he thought he actually might not make it. And I guess, thankfully, the Virgin Island police showed up not too shortly after and arrested him and brought him back to the mainland. And what's crazy is this is not the only story of its kind. It's one of at least 3 such civil suits seeking damages filed recently against the alleged trespassers. But they're not just kicking these trespassers off. So the same lady that was arrested in connection with pretty much kidnapping Owen and throwing him in the dungeon, right, was arrested in connection with a separate incident from March 1st in which another trespasser was hogtied and stripped naked. It was a remarkably similar incident to the one alleged by Owen. So, who is this lady, and why is she so vehemently defending this island like literally tooth and nail? The woman that directed that he be blindfolded was Anne Rodriguez, Epstein's former property manager. But still the property manager of Little St. James Island. She never changed. Isn't that strange? You find out that you were managing this island for this monster and all these monstrous things he was doing, and you don't leave the island. You continue to just run that island. And not only that, but you have your daughters and your family living on this island. Why are you still living here? And then why are you defending it like so hard, like you almost have something or someone to hide? And then the person that owns the island, Stephen Dekoff, a billionaire and founder of Black Diamond Capital Management, right? He purchased the island in 2023 through his investment firm he called SD Investments, with plans to develop it into a resort. But he's done nothing of the sort. There is no resort, there is no construction, at least based on anything that we normal people can see. So, why did he buy the island? It doesn't make any sense if he's not building a resort. And anyways, who would want to build a resort or even go to a resort on that island? So it kind of seems like this person that I guarantee you has some sort of connections to the people that we're talking about decided to buy this island and is pretty much keeping it completely quarantined, keeping the same lady that kept it clean and kept it quarantined during reign, kept her on the island, and is still having her freaking arrest, hogtie, and kidnap anyone that tries to come on the island and figure out what actually was going on, what actually might still be there, and who might still be there. What are they trying to hide? Who are they trying to hide?
I really do not think that that island should exist anymore. I really wish one day that they would just do a LiDAR scan on the entire island just to see if there's any hidden chambers or rooms that were never discovered and just be done with that island. There is some bad energy, bad mojo, bad whatever you want to call it lingering there, I am sure. And the fact that someone can actually own that island and keep people away from it should make you question the person that owns that island now and why they're trying to keep people away from it.
I hope you have been looking up at the skies because things are getting interesting, especially after the disclosures from the U.S. government. It seems as though unidentified objects are popping up everywhere. Well, take a look at this footage captured by a witness out of Phoenix, Arizona by the name of Charles Mack. He was outside of his home when he looked up and saw this object in the sky, and this one is not a drone. This is truly something unidentified. Take a look at this footage, comment below. Tell us what you think.
I wish my camera was better. Where's come on. My camera ain't worth
I too wish your camera worked a little bit better. To me, that kind of looked like a cluster of balloons just jostling against each other, but it's really too dark and blurry to be certain on that one. Let me know your best guess.
If you think time travel's impossible, here's some stories that might change your mind. First up, Stephen Hawking's time traveler party. In 2009, Stephen Hawking secretly held a party for time travelers, but he didn't announce it until after the party happened. The idea being that if time travelers from the future were real and they knew that the party happened historically, they could still show up. But no one did, or at least no one that we know of. Next up is the time-traveling hipster from 1943. This comes from an old photo that appears to show a man dressed suspiciously modern for the era. He's wearing sunglasses, a casual printed shirt, and what some people claim looks like a small modern camera. Skeptics say that everything he's wearing did exist at the time, but the image itself still feels like someone accidentally wandered into the wrong decade. Madman Mike Markham. In the 1990s, Markham became famous on Coast to Coast AM after claiming that he was working on building a homemade time machine using high-voltage electrical equipment, something called a Jacob's Ladder. The story went that he started experimenting with this and putting objects through this electrical field, and they disappeared entirely, but then would reappear later. He had the goal of putting himself through this field, walking through, and said that the only thing that he'd take with him was a cell phone. However, in 1997, Mike and his work disappeared from public view. As it turns out, there was a cold case in the 1930s where a barrel washed up on shore, and there was an unidentified body in it. And the only thing with the body was a small device that could only be described as a modern 1990s era cell phone. Many people thought that this may have been Madman Mike Markham, who had time traveled to the past and somehow wound up in that barrel. But as it turns out, Mike Markham is still alive and well today, as of at least 2015 when he appeared on Art Bell's show. Next up is John Titor, the internet's most famous time traveler. In the early 2000s, Titor started posting on message boards on the internet under the username TimeTravel0 and claimed that he was from a post-apocalyptic year 2036. He said that he had traveled back in time to retrieve a IBM 5100 computer from the 1970s, which apparently had a code to solve a Unix problem that would destroy all computers in his era. He then made an additional stop in the late 90s and early 2000s to visit his family, and he warned of civil unrest, future wars, disease outbreaks, and diverging timelines. His predictions didn't exactly come true, and the more people researched this story, they found that some entertainment lawyer in Florida held the rights to the story of John Titor. So it seems like it may have all been a hoax, but the similarities that have happened in our timeline based on Titor's predictions are eerily similar. Next up is the Moberly Jourdain incident. So in 1901, there were these two English women who visited Versailles in France, Charlotte Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, and they claimed to have accidentally stepped into the past while touring the palace grounds. They described going through the gardens and all of a sudden the air felt heavy, and suddenly they started seeing these people dressed in 18th century clothing. They saw strange old buildings and possibly even Marie Antoinette herself. Later, they became convinced that they had slipped into Versailles as it existed before the French Revolution. Next up is the Bold Street time slips. In Liverpool, England, Bold Street has become one of the most famous alleged time slip locations in the entire world. Multiple people have reported experiencing sudden flashes of the past around this street. In 1996, there's this story of an off-duty cop named Frank who was shopping with his wife. He wound up going into a music shop alone while his wife went into a bookstore. As Frank decided to leave the store he was in, he went to go meet up with his wife, and he entered into this spot of dead silence. And suddenly, this old-style box truck almost hits him. Even though he was on this pedestrian walkway, all of a sudden he was in the middle of a road. He noticed that all the stores on Bold Street were different, and that cars looked like antiques, and everyone was dressed like it was the 1950s before snapping back to his time. So could there actually be some kind of time slip or portal on this road in Liverpool, England? The man from Torrid. The story goes that in the 1950s, a man arrived at an airport in Japan with a passport from a country called Torrid, a place that doesn't exist. When officials showed him a map, he pointed towards the country of Andorra, which is between the borders of France and Spain, insisting that his country Torrid had been there for centuries, suggesting that he was either a time traveler or from another dimension. His documents seemed official, but after being detained overnight, he vanished into thin air from the cell that he was in. Skeptics think that the man from Torrid story was inspired by a real incident that happened in 1960, where a man named John Allen Zegras was arrested in Tokyo, and he had held this fake passport with a fake language on it from a fake country in Africa. So that may have been the real origin of the man from Torrid. Lastly is the Dodelston messages. In the 1980s, before public internet, a couple in England began receiving messages on their home computer from a man calling himself Lucas, who claimed to be living in the 1500s. And the way that he wrote to them was in this old-fashioned Middle English style, where he also explained, as they were able to decipher his language, that he was communicating with them through a mysterious light box or an impossible communication device. But then things got even stranger when another group appeared to be communicating with them on this computer, claiming to be from the year 2109, and they were monitoring this conversation over time, like they were the overseers and connecting these 2 points in time in the 1980s and the 1500s, like it was some grand experiment.
The theory of time travel is really interesting, And I'm not saying that I do not believe in it, I just do not necessarily believe that it's happening as frequently as some people think it does. I feel like if time travel was a real thing, that there's so many strict laws around it, you know, for the people that are actually dealing with time travel. There's probably some time cops or time police somewhere out there in the universe, or within time itself. I just think that the laws would be so complex, and if that people were just easily able to time travel, we would be seeing or noticing a lot of weird things.
This will not end well. Do y'all remember Ebo Noah? The guy who convinced tens of thousands of people that a worldwide flood was coming and defrauded them out of hundreds of thousands of dollars and bought sports cars and a bunch of stupid stuff. Remember him? Well, now he's on to his next scheme, but God did not let it work so effortlessly. So this time, he went out to split the sea. Yeah, like Moses splitting the Red Sea, except the wave came back and hit him so hard. Let's watch. So of course you got some guy sitting here reading the Bible, and here comes Ebo Noah. You can notice that face from anywhere. Coming with his staff, right? He's gonna get what's coming to him. You can't tell me that wasn't God. The most insane part is the crowd behind him are literally cheering him on. Like they didn't learn from last time. Yeah, sorry, for some reason this video has no audio. To see him get hit, watch it again.
I do remember that guy, and I cannot believe he still has a following after his flood prediction didn't come to fruition, and he ended up buying a sports car, and people are still following him and believing in him. That's concerning and scary. I mean, this guy's not the only one doing it. There's people out there that own mega churches that advertise on TV. They're no better in my opinion, but this guy is on that level where he is just deceiving people and profiting off of people while deceiving them, and that's just not good in my opinion.
Buddy. Hey, how you doing? I feel happy. I feel healthy. I'm a human being.
Same here, man. Same here. Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end today's video. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching these clips with me. If today's your birthday, happy birthday, and if not, have a good day anyways.